Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack. Hello and welcome to Fresh Take from What Fresh Hell, laughing in the face of motherhood. This is Margaret, and today I am talking to Jill Castle. Jill is a pediatric dietitian and hosting childhood nutrition and feeding resources, and she is also the host of the Nourished Child podcast. Jill has served on the board of advisors to Parents Magazine and is the author of 5 books on childhood nutrition, including Kids Thrive at Any Size, which we'll be discussing today. Welcome, Jill.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's start kind of with where you start in the book, which is why people come to this question. And I think almost all of us have had concerns about our child's eating habits, our child's maybe size, our own eating habits, and not passing them along to their kids. So why do people come to a pediatric nutritionist?
Well, for a variety of reasons. I think, eating and what they see in terms of their child's behaviors around eating can be concerning. Oftentimes parents come because their pediatrician has told them, your child is getting larger, your child is getting smaller, your child has food allergies. Or sometimes parents come because their child is very active in sports and they want to make sure they're getting the right fuel. So there are a variety of reasons why somebody might land on my doorstep. I would say that more often than not, it has to do with size, smaller or larger.
And you talk in the book a lot, and we'll be getting really into the granular of this, about how our perceptions about body size can be very misinformed, I guess, or they're just wrong. And some of it is that we think that larger size children are innately unhealthy, or that kind of being in a small body is ideal. And what has changed about that in the last couple of decades? I know since I was a child, this was definitely the reigning perception.
Yeah, I think it still is the reigning perception. I think we've got a lot of folks out there who believe that the way a person appears or looks dictates their health status, which in children is very challenging because children are changing so much. You can have chunky babies who lean out by the time they're toddlers and appear to be underweight. You have middle school children who fill out and thicken as they're entering puberty and then lean out and shoot up and get taller. And so ascribing health status based on what a child looks like can be a very dangerous thing to their emotional well-being. And I think in the book, I try to point out that health doesn't really have a size in childhood, that children can be in larger bodies that are changing over time and be quite healthy. They can go out and play soccer and football and do all the things they want to do. I think the other side of the coin is this idea that childhood provides us with such an opportunity to develop the health habits and lifestyle behaviors that will help children down the road be as healthy as they want to be. And then the other thing is their emotional well-being, which we really aren't talking about. I think we're all aware that anxiety and depression and mental health concerns have increased really very much since the pandemic. And parents are really worried about that. They want to raise a healthy child, but they also want to raise a happy child, a child who feels good about themselves and who is well emotionally.
We talk a lot on the podcast about our own issues around body size, weight, nutrition, and trying to break a lot of cycles that we were raised with. I certainly came from a generation, and I still see it, of food and size are so linked together, and that it was hard to have a meal where someone didn't comment on the fact that I shouldn't have eaten that. Oh, I'm going to regret that. Basically, that being thin was so important that food was almost considered an enemy growing up, that like this relationship to food is this something that we have to fear because it could cause this terrible thing to happen to us, which is that we wouldn't be thin. And you talk in the book about starting to unpack, and I think for a lot of our audience, how do we start to unpack our own issues around food and thinness? Because we can say, and I understand so much more now about this, and I've done a lot of work on myself and around it, but man, those voices are deep in your head about this stuff. It's hard to get rid of them.
For sure. I think awareness is key. And when we're raising kids, I have 4 of my own. They were all born close together. Man, could they trigger me. Not so much about food for me, but if they said no to something I requested, this voice in my head was like, wait, I never got to say no when I was a kid. Like I had to follow the rules, right? So I think as parents, when we feel that sensation of being triggered, we're watching our child eat too much or be out of control around food or enjoy it too much. And if we're starting to feel like we're a little nervous about that, and what does that mean? That's a sign to step back and say, wait a second, this is one meal. Enjoyment is something we should be encouraging in our children. The relationship with food ideally should be a positive one. And when we lay up all of these negative comments or assessments at the table, how well did this child eat? How poorly did that child eat? This one never took a bite of that. When we start to assess and critique, it takes the joy out of eating for children. Children need to be able to come to the table and look forward to being together with their family. They don't have to receive a perfect meal all the time. I don't feel like the food at family meals is as important as the connection and the camaraderie. When children develop sort of a negative association with food or a negative relationship with food, that's where we start to then see body dissatisfaction. We start to see dysfunctional eating. We start to see the spectrum of disordered behaviors around food. That poor relationship with food is sort of a seed to all of those other behaviors that so many parents are afraid of and worry about. And so the relationship with food is fuel. I say to parents all the time, I say to kids too, it's just fuel. Your body is like a machine. We have to put fuel in the body in order for it to go. There are some types of fuel that are highly nutritious. In the book, I call it highly nutritious food. Decently nutritious food might not be the most quote unquote healthy that some people view it, but it does provide nutrition. It does provide energy. And then of course we have minimally nutritious food that mostly provides a lot of enjoyment. And yes, these are foods that like sweets and treats that we want to have strategies around and policies and flexibility, but also some sort of boundaries around so they're not carte blanche. But circling back to that positive relationship with food, that's super important for parents to think about as they're interacting around food in the meal table with their children. And also to reflect on their own relationship with food. What is that like?
Yeah, and I think for parents, we need those same messages for ourselves too, even in adulthood. And another thing you point out in the book that was helpful for me as a parameter is, body size is not only about weight, it's height as well. And that some of the charting that we use, we talk about this in a lot of ways in parenting, that developmental milestones and other kind of checklists that they have at the doctor's office are useful, but they're only one singular tool, that we can't go and say, my child should be this because a chart at the doctor's office said it.
Yeah. And I think you're referring to growth charts and BMI tables, right? And those are a singular point in time. As a pediatric dietitian, when I'm working with families, I always say, bring the growth chart. I want to see it from a year forward. So if I'm seeing a 15-year-old, I want to see the last 14 years. I want to understand what that growth has been like. And it's important for parents to hear that one point in time does not define a child's health, does not define what they eat. It doesn't define their health risk. It's really looking at parameters over time. And then at the end of the day, I actually feel as well, how is this child functioning in the world? Are they enjoying going to school? Are they engaging with friends, with family? Are they able to physically do all the things that they want to do? The functionality of a child's life, I think, is really important, not a weight on a growth chart that tells them, quote unquote, overweight or other categories of weight classifications.
Yeah, and I think for parents, this is a very difficult issue because it is our least favorite. High stakes, low control. It feels like these outcomes are very important, that our children be healthy, but also have self-esteem and accept themselves however they look. And also that somehow we're in charge of it because we are the primary person feeding them. And I think it's not for nothing that people get very wrapped up in these issues, because it does feel like the onus is put on us as moms, particularly, to do this correctly. And that then weight and the way our kids present in the world feels very connected to how people are judging us around these issues. And so how do you begin to untangle? And also I will say, because we've been talking a lot about this on the podcast, some of these are very systemic issues that then all come down to the point of you failed, mom, you stink. And some of this is marketing. And there's a lot of stuff going around about food and what our kids are eating and drinking and what they're attracted to that has a lot to do with food companies making foods very attractive and tasty and all of these things. But then it kind of gets left at mom's doorstep. Oh, you failed. You did a bad job. Your children eat too much junk food.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I try to point out in the book is that size is highly genetic. There's not a lot of control we have over size. Children, where they deposit fat, where they deposit muscle, how much muscle they have, how tall they're going to be, their shape, how round or slender they will be, is highly genetic. There's actually one study that I point out in the book that I love to mention because it looks at identical twins who were raised apart in different homes. And their size and their shape is up to 70% heritable. But that other 30% is the environment. It's the habits that they establish. Sure, it's the food choice, but it's also sleep. It's how much screen time they're spending time watching. It's how much they move. What is the functioning of the family? What's the family culture? How do families talk about bodies and food? There's so much to it. And I don't think we're talking enough about that. I feel like as a society, we spend a lot of time nitpicking about food when we're zooming in on food with a microscope and we're forgetting that wow, if our children are getting a solid, restful night of sleep, they're more likely to be able to sort out their emotions, to control their emotions during the day, to regulate their appetite. So there's a bigger picture, and that's what I wanted to do with this book, is really shine a light on all the different behaviors that are so essential, particularly in that decade of life between 3 and 13, where you have teenagers. I've raised kids.
I only have 9 months left until my youngest is 13, so I better get with the program here.
Well, that decade is kids will follow the leader. You establish these habits. They're like, yes, mom, I'll do that. You have a regular bedtime and a regular routine before bedtime. They're doing it because that's the routine. And so in a lot of ways, it's easy to set up these, quote unquote, easy to set these habits up, given in a perfect world, we have all the time and all the resources that we need. I also try to highlight that there are things to consider when you don't have the resources, right? There are things that collectively as a whole society, we should be more sensitive to. Not everybody can purchase organic fruits and vegetables, right? So how do you raise a child when you might have limited resources, or you might live in an environment that is less favorable to getting a good night's sleep or getting your child out to move their bodies every day? So I try to highlight that in the book too, because there are things we can all be doing, I think, that are helpful to establishing these lifestyle behaviors that children will come back to, even if they drop them as teenagers. They'll come back to them as young adults. And I can validate that because my children are young adults and I watch them and their behaviors, and a lot of them reflect what they were raised with.
So you touched on this idea of the whole child, and I want to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about this idea of approaching the whole child. I am talking to Jill Castle. She is the author of Kids Thrive at Any Size, and we'll be right back.
Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand. And it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING. My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com. So we were talking a little bit before the break about how we are kind of narrowly focused on food. But really in this book, there's a lot about nutrition, but it's really your focus is on the whole child and how to focus on the whole child. So walk us through what that term means and how it comes into practice.
So whole child healthy is a model I created to reflect physical health and emotional well-being. So traditionally, we have, as a society, focused on physical health. And being a healthcare provider, that is very much what we focus on. What is blood pressure? What is weight? What is all these other functional factors? What are the lab values? We focus a lot on physical health. We want children to grow up physically healthy. But what we haven't been focusing on is emotional well-being. How do children feel about themselves? How are they managing their emotions? How are they particularly feeling about the skin that they're in, especially if their body is larger or smaller. And so Whole Child Healthy really helps families focus on these lifestyle behaviors, which there are 8 of them. I call them 8 pillars of wellness. That's sort of the path to this physical health and emotional well-being. It's to help families remember that there's more to the story than just cooking a great meal and having it be organic and on the table at 6:00 every night. There's a lot of other things families can be doing. And my hope is that families will recognize that, I don't have to worry so much about food every day. I can focus on sleep if we're having troubles in that area, or I could focus on movement. That 8 pillars of wellness start with family culture. And I wanted to start with that one first because that is the safest environment that a child will have as they grow up. It's the most powerful culture they will ever experience before they go out into the world and experience our whole societal cultural norms that you mentioned a little bit earlier about. After that, sleep, movement, feeding, which is that parent interaction around food, eating, which really we aren't talking a lot about, but establishing those eating habits that are good behaviors that encourage mindfulness with eating. And after that is food, screens, and self-love. So there's 8 pillars of wellness. And I ended with self-love because I felt that in a world where society focuses so much on appearance, we need to double down as parents on cultivating self-love within our children.
Yeah, and I want to focus on that for a moment, that I think that we talk about this all the time, self-esteem, and how do I find it? And people kind of approach self-esteem sometimes with their kids as if it's like a treasure hidden somewhere and they need to find the roadmap and then their kids will find this self-esteem. But self-esteem is kind of the boring everyday work. And let's go through some of the things you talk about in the book because I think they're really important. Self-esteem is not something you give a child. It's something you help a child find. And so how do we start to do that? Some of it is praising outcome, right? And not praising, did I say outcome? It's exactly the opposite. It's praising process over outcome. And this does have to do with, I think, body size and appearance. And that I think, especially for young women, having a daughter, like, oh, you're so pretty. Oh, you're so beautiful. Like that kind of praise, it's very exterior. It doesn't really get at something that is essential to the child. So how do we work against some of the messaging that our children are receiving, that to be the best and to shine on the shiny podium is what's important, but we really want that to be internal to them?
Yeah, I think in that chapter, I talk about worthiness, self-worth. So I sort of showcase that as just because you exist, you are worthy of respect and dignity, no matter your size, shape, color, creed, all of this stuff. Self-esteem is, as you said, something children learn really based on the skills that they develop. Like reading a recipe and cooking a meal, a child independently, that builds self-esteem because it's a skill that they learn. It turns into, I can do this. I've got this. When it comes to bodies, and there's a real fight, I think, that parents have to acknowledge. And that fight is our kids are growing up in a society that just tells them that what they look like is where their value is. And that's not going to probably ever go away. And the rise and prevalence of social media, kids are getting bombarded daily with messages and images of what they should look like. And so as parents, I think we have to really be advocates and activists for body neutrality and body acceptance and worthiness and dignity around all bodies. And that can be from what you talk about in your home and not talking about what somebody looks like or what your child looks like. Oh, you're so pretty. But really focusing on character, focusing on internal qualities, taking the focus off of bodies. And if you are talking about bodies, keeping it very neutral. Your legs ran so fast at the race today, right? It's talking about not what it looks like, but what it can do, what the function is. So in the book, I say function over form. And I keep hammering that message, like we really want to talk about bodies in a very neutral way. And I know there's a body positivity movement, and I don't have a problem with body positivity, but I do acknowledge in the book that body positivity still focuses on the body.
Interesting. Yeah. And I think I want to really click on something that you said, because I haven't really thought about it in this way, but I am very up on body neutrality and not talking about bodies, and I've done a lot of work around that. But I think sometimes now that I especially have teens, that you do have to acknowledge on some level the other messages that they're getting, because otherwise I think it can feel like you're just on a planet by yourself with total body neutrality, where they are, as much as we try to limit what comes in, they are still getting the social media message constantly that like hot bikini body is what really matters, no matter what your mom says at home. So is there a way to talk about that and kind of bridge those gaps to be able to say, we support body neutrality, but I also am going to acknowledge the fact that that is not a message you're getting everywhere you go?
I think you just said that beautifully. I think if we scroll back to the first pillar of wellness, which is family culture, are you building a family culture that respects all bodies, and that your young children are seeing you talk to people of all sizes, and that you socialize with people of all sizes, and you embrace and celebrate people of all sizes? And this is in the family, it's in the preschools, it's in the school system. We need almost like a overturning of how we talk about bodies of all sizes. But we also, I agree, if we have a strong family culture and communication and cohesiveness and trusting within the family, then when your 11-year-old comes to you and says, I want a hot body bikini, you've already got the culture that where your child is coming to you and you can say, sweetheart, I see you are seeing these messages, but I want you to know your body is fine as is. Your body can do all the things you want it to do. It's really hard to see those messages. It's really hard to see those representations, but very few people have the body that meets that ideal. And we need to tell our kids that.
And then in terms of even within the family culture, we might have people within the family who are still struggling and verbalizing messages that we are not thrilled with. So Aunt Jane, who comes over on Friday night, is always like, oh, I shouldn't eat this, or watching something and saying, oh, that person's beautiful and that person's not beautiful because one is a different size than the other. So that's also something, do we just counter message that again? Like Aunt Jane, has ideas about this that.
Yep. We counter message that. And in the book, I provide a lot of language and phrases that parents can use, because I would say this is probably my top number one question that parents say. How do I deal with Thanksgiving when everybody is hounding my child to eat more food, or judging me because my child is larger or who has gotten larger over the summer, right? There's a lot of stigma and discrimination around size and around food and around eating. And so, having some key phrases and responses when people are saying things that don't align with your family culture, your family values, and letting your child see you stand up and take a stance on their behalf, on behalf of all bodies, really.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to go into the pillars in the third segment. But before we get there, I want to talk. We have a lot of listeners, including some of hosts who have kids who have specific needs, and how this messaging, and I was really glad to see in the book how much you include about kids who might have autism, ADHD, that how does this conversation and these messages affect kids who might have specific dietary needs or dietary challenges?
Yes. So there are lots of kids out there that have specific dietary needs. And for example, children who have food allergies, for instance, kids who are underweight in an unhealthy way and who may need modifications of their diet, even children in larger bodies who might have health conditions that could benefit from modifications in their diet, such as high blood pressure, for example. It's a delicate dance in terms of how we portray what our selections are for our children. I think less talk is better when it comes to food and, quote, diets and eating patterns. I find that I've been a dietitian for 33 years and I've worked with lots of families, and I feel that children really get bogged down with these messages of, we have to follow the DASH diet because you have high blood pressure. Children don't need to know they're on the DASH diet. They just need their parents to modify the food in the home and select things and present them that will accommodate their children's individual needs. When we talk about food with children, It's very easy to slide down the food shaming slide. And there is a lot of food shaming, and food shaming can be very elitist. It can, everybody has the ability to pick what they want to pick to feed their children, right? A lot of us choose what works within our socioeconomic status. I had 4 kids. I wasn't buying a lot of organic at that time. I had 4 young kids and we were trying to stay on a budget. And I was delighted that they would eat fruits and vegetables. I didn't care if they were organic or not. I wanted them to eat fruits and vegetables. So I think when we talk about food, we have to be careful about food shaming and this sort of hierarchy and morality around this food is better than that food, because kids pick up on that stuff. And again, while we all have our individual realities and our ability to choose what we want to serve our children, we also need to acknowledge that some people don't have that luxury of choice. Some people are on very real budgets, on very real constrictions, and they deserve respect too. And so I talk about food shaming in the book and sort of encourage parents to be, again, neutral about food, because all foods can fit. It's really about the flexibility around food and the balance that you strike. I just was at a wedding with all of my family. We were eating fast food on the road and we had more cupcakes and cake than we would normally have. Fine. We all enjoyed it, but it's Monday. Let's get back on track, right? Everybody was like, I'm going home. And my kids are a little bit older and live in their own apartments, but they were all like, oh, I'm back on, I can't wait to go grocery shopping and plan my meals and get back on my walking routine. And it's fine to indulge.
We call it back to one on the podcast, heading back to where you feel the best. I am talking to Jill Castle. She is the author of Kids Thrive at Any Size, and we'll be back to talk about those 8 pillars of wellness.
All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE.
You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
So we talked a bit about the first pillar, family culture. I think that one we kind of understand. Sleep. This is a hard one. Again, it feels very low control sometimes. How do we foster good sleep in our children?
Yeah. So I have a how-to section in each pillar of wellness.
Yes, really get the book because it walks you through these things very clearly. So we'll just hit on a couple of highlights and then there are very clear takeaways at the end of every chapter. It's one of those books that's like a user manual. It's not like a 30,000 foot theoretical view.
It's very practical. Yeah.
Yes, very practical.
So the most important thing about sleep is to know, in terms of the science, as it relates to children's health and growing and all that good stuff, growth hormone is secreted while children sleep. So they're growing when they're sleeping, literally. And it also helps children regulate their appetite. And so we do want to have kids get sort of their recommended hours of sleep, but it's not an hours game anymore. It's a sleep hygiene. It's a quality of sleep game. So your child could be in bed, in the bedroom, laying in their bed for 7 hours and only sleeping for 4 hours, right? So we really do want to encourage good sleep hygiene, which really means routines around sleep, dark rooms, minimal light, no computers in the room.
No phones, people, no phones.
Exactly. Minimizing the noise, calm bedtime routines before bedtime with young children. We're not roughhousing and running around and jumping on trampolines. So I go through all of these things that parents can do to encourage good sleep hygiene and quality sleep. Again, it has an impact on their physical health, and it also has an impact, positive impact on their emotional well-being. Well-rested kids navigate the world much better. They're in better emotional control, and they are better able to learn and remember and do all the things they're supposed to do during the day.
And it's part of the whole child. Also, movement. Let's talk about movement.
Yes. So again, there are wonderful things about physical activity. I call it movement because I think sometimes we think physical activity means exercise. Not really. Moving, walking to class, going outside at recess. Yes, playing a sport. So movement encompasses all of these different things, from sweaty, heavy-duty physical activity to just walking the dog around the block at night. All movement is good movement. Research shows that children actually, even one episode of moderate to vigorous exercise, 20 minutes or more, has a positive impact on blood pressure, on blood fats, great impact. And if you do it regularly, you're getting even more impact, right? We want kids moving at least an hour a day. In the book, I acknowledge that some kids don't get out and move an hour a day. It's pouring rain right now in Massachusetts. What do you do with your kids on a rainy day? They can't get outside and move. So I've shown parents, or tried to show parents, how you can take sedentary activity, or activity where you're not moving. You're laying on the couch watching TV, or you're playing video games, sitting in a chair, how to make those more active. Sit on a round ball and bounce around, or walk slowly on a treadmill while you're doing it. So you can, in younger children who are playing Legos or they're playing house, how do you set up the house where they're getting more physical movement? Well, you can put the kitchen upstairs and the family rooms downstairs, and the bedrooms are across the hall. So kids are actually moving as they're playing indoors. So we want to see kids have about an hour of movement every day collectively. I think the issue with parents right now is they feel a lot of that onus on themselves to have to create that. And it's a sad thing, because schools should be playing a role in this too, I feel. We've written out physical activity in most schools these days, and we really need to bring it back in. There's so many physical health benefits as well as emotional benefits to daily movement.
And it's a good reminder for those of us with teenagers who may be sitting in class all day and then coming home and having 6 hours of homework, and they've got to get into the right school, so they got to sit and do it, that for those kids as well, taking a walk, getting outside, whatever it is, putting that physical movement back in. Let's talk about feeding and eating kind of together here.
Okay, so feeding is really that interaction, parents and their children around the table. We know there's counterproductive feeding, things like take another bite, or, oh, you've had enough. You can't have second helpings. You've had too much. These are counterproductive to the relationship with food, which we talked about earlier, but also in having children self-regulate their eating. And that is the ultimate goal, in my opinion, is to support our children so they are able to self-regulate their eating. And that's how the eating pillar ties into it, because children have genetic propensity for their eating behaviors. So some children, it's called food approach. Some children are more attracted to food, more interested, more exuberant with their eating around food. And other kids are more satiety responsive, is what we call it. They're more sensitive to that feeling of fullness. So they slow down their eating more. They don't eat as much. They stop when they're full. So when we're building eating habits with children, we want them to be able to sense their hunger and their fullness. And we want them to have a keen sense of what that feels like, and let that govern whether they're eating and how much they're eating and when they're eating. So there are lots of little tricks in the eating pillar that I help parents, number one, build the awareness of their children of their appetite cues, but also if their children are older, building that sensitivity around mindfulness with eating, which is so key, right? If you're tuned into your body, and that's the ultimate goal, is that everybody eats what their body needs, right? Not because mom told me to eat 2 more bites or grandpa said stop eating.
Right. But because I know that's what will make me feel good. Right. And then you talk about food and having a nutrient lens when you approach food. I liked this idea a lot.
Yeah. And a lot of that came from the fact that my editor said, you've written so much about food, you need to write about it a little bit differently. I said, well, I'm going to even simplify it more, because if you go out in the world today and you look on social media and you look in the media, food is getting more and more complicated and parents are getting more and more confused. What should I be feeding my children? Well, look at food through a nutrient lens. Kids are growing and developing quite a bit during these 18 years. They need nutrients for their brain, their body, to support their immune system, for their bone health. And so if you look at food like through a lens of how many nutrients does this food have? Is it a good source of nutrients? That can really govern what you choose to feed your children. I talk through the food groups. The food groups are sort of tired, not sexy, but they are nutrient rich. And if you can lean on those a little bit to help you with your meal planning, you really are going to be getting those 40 nutrients that kids need every day to grow and develop, from brain to bones to their whole body.
And it's one of the things we talk about a lot on the podcast. It's a little more work up front to sort of dig in and figure it out, but then it becomes habit. Like, oh, okay, I have this and this and this in the food groups, and then I could put them on. I kind of know that it's all there. And then I don't want to get too deep into screens because it's a topic we've talked about a lot with a lot of experts around it, but why is it one of the pillars of the whole child health?
Yeah, it's a pillar because I think that it has a huge impact on children's emotional well-being. So it's not so much of a heavy impact on physical health, although when we look at the research, children who spend a lot of time in front of screens spend less time being physically active. And so that's really the tie there. But the emotional well-being piece, when you're bombarded every single day by these images of perfect food, because you'll see a lot of recipes of perfect food out there or perfect bodies, it can really take its toll on children. The other thing, particular to children who may be growing up in larger bodies, that's where they're getting bullied. Cyberbullying is a real thing, and weight stigma, size stigma is happening online, and it's something that parents really need to be aware of. And developed some parameters around media and screen time, how much is allowable, when it's allowable, and just giving parents the parameters to feel like they can have a little bit more control over it, perhaps.
Absolutely. And you talk in the book about creating a family manifesto. So let's just touch on this briefly. It's the idea, and I think we talk about this all the time on the podcast, you can't address a problem until you understand what the problem is and what your values around that problem are. And this is kind of the key. So tell us how to create a family manifesto.
So I included one in the book, a sample one. But it's really, like you said, it's your core beliefs. It's what your family as a whole believes in. Are you a family that believes in giving back to the community? Are you a family that believes all bodies are good? How do you treat each other within the family? How do you problem solve? How do you communicate? How do you tackle family unity? Our family, my family, it's been very important to me that we have a unified family, and we call ourselves Family Castle. And when children grow up knowing that there's this unity, this way that we filter through problems, we handle problems, kids, when they are faced with these challenges, like a bully, for example, they're going to think, how does my family, what do I stand for? What I stand for is what my family stands for, right? Children don't know what they stand for. They're looking at the adults in their lives to help them understand and take a stance on that. And so I think for parents who might want to write a family manifesto, it's just really thinking about what are the values you want to raise your children with. And there are no good values and bad values. I mean, there's no judgment there. It's just what is important to you.
And you can add to it as time goes by, and you could even have kids help you with it as they get older too. I actually printed out the copy from the book because I thought I want to do this with my family and just have it be kind of something that we really sit and think about. Like, what do we stand for? That's such a useful exercise. This was such an amazing conversation. I have 400 more pages of notes on this book. So you'll have to just go and get it for yourself, people, because it's very usable, very easily approachable. Kids Thrive at Any Size by Jill Castle. Jill, tell our audience where they can find you and find more of your work.
Great. So if you want just free nutrition resources, go to thenourishedchild.com or listen to the podcast. I have a lot of information there for free and some paid courses. If you are more looking for a consultant or somebody in private practice, I have a very small private practice. You can go to jillcastle.com. I do speaking and consulting and all of that stuff there as well. So
fantastic. And we will link to the book and to all of those resources in the show notes of this episode. Jill, thanks so much for this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.